Hello everybody. We are here at the northwest corner of Old Sacramento, just about 100 feet from the Sacramento History Museum, right here on the Sacramento River. And we're going to be talking about one of the most prominent people in Sacramento history, at least early Sacramento history, before the city. In February is Black History Month. We've been highlighting a lot of different stories throughout this month of people of African descent and really people rooted in Sacramento history that I hope have inspired people to learn more about. Before the discovery of gold on January 24th, 1848 at John Sutter's sawmill, it is estimated that at least 10% of California's population was of African descent. A large portion of that being the Californio population, a mixture of Spanish, indigenous, and African people living here in California. We know of people like Pio Pico, who was California's last governor under Mexican rule. He was of African descent. We know of James Beckwourth, who was a famous fur trapper who also led wagon trains in the mid-1840s to California. But there's no person more prominent in Sacramento's history that actually not that many people know about. It's not really written about in books or anything like that. And this spot is historic for what this individual did in December 1847, right here on the waterfront, before the city, before there were buildings, before there was roads, before there was the I Street Bridge. None of this. This was just the Embarcadero. The individual that I'm talking about today is this man, William Alexander Leidesdorff Jr. Now, William Leidesdorff, he was born in 1810 in St. Croix, West Indies. He was the eldest son of Wilhelm Leidesdorff, a Danish sailor of Jewish descent, and his mother, Anna Marie Sparks, was a woman of mixed African and Spanish descent. He emigrated to New Orleans at the age of 24, and he became an American citizen. He held a master's license as a ship's captain and captained the Julian ship to California in 1841. And upon coming to California in Monterey, he immediately established business relations with Hawaii, with prominent Californios on the coast. He had established business relations with United States businessmen that were in California as well on the coast. He was involved in everything. He purchased a home in Yerba Buena that we know today as San Francisco, and he was even a representative for the Russian American Fur Company. He was actually in charge of handling John Sutter's payments of Fort Ross. John Sutter had purchased Fort Ross in December 1841 from the Russian American Fur Company for $30,000 and was promised to make a series of payments over the years. Leidesdorff was that individual responsible for receiving those payments to give to the Russian American company. And he ended up becoming, Leidesdorff ended up becoming the vice consul to the United States under Thomas Larkin. Thomas Larkin was the consul. Leidesdorff was the vice consul, which is essentially the equivalent of like an ambassador today. And in 1844, after becoming a Mexican citizen, Leidesdorff obtained a Mexican land grant of over 35,000 acres. Now that land grant was one of the largest land grants here in the Sacramento Valley, and it stretched from what is essentially Bradshaw Road the western border of Rancho Cordova, all the way to the city of Folsom. And this is a diseño of his land grant here. Now this is New Helvetia here. This is where this Sutter's Fort right there near the confluence of the Sacramento and American Rivers, which is where we're at right now, is about this spot. 2 miles from here is Sutter's Fort. And this area was Leidesdorff's land grant, known as Rancho Rio de los Americanos, the American River Ranch. It was everything south of the American River from what is today Rancho Cordova to Folsom. This is an example of another diseño here in the Sacramento area. This is a diseño of Rancho San Juan. Both of these were designed in 1844. This here, right here, is the confluence again, New Helvetia, John Sutter's land grant. On the opposite side of the land grant of the American River, I apologize, is Rancho Del Paso, which was obtained by Eliab Grimes. And this is Rancho San Juan, which was on the opposite side of the river of Rancho Rio de los Americanos. Now, what about this location that I'm at here right now? This was the original Embarcadero. This is where schooners transporting goods from New Helvetia to Monterey were constantly running. Some of those schooners included the Lady Drinkwater and the Sacramento, and Sam Brannan had the Dis Minana. These are all schooners that are transporting goods from the Sacramento Valley to Monterey for essentially international trade. Leidesdorff, however, he had a steamboat that he had purchased from the Russian American Fur Company, and it was called the Little Sitka. And in late November 1847, he started traveling up the Sacramento River on the Little Sitka with some passengers bound for this spot. It took 9 days for it to arrive. It arrived at this spot on December 7th, 1847. But that is the first steamboat to ever travel on the Sacramento River. Leidesdorff was most likely coming here to see his land grant here in this area. Now, some of the passengers that were on this steamboat, which was a 37-foot steamboat, was George McKinstry, who was sheriff of the Sacramento District of California. Eliza Gregson, who wrote a memoir later in life. She wrote about her experiences on the steamboat. Her infant daughter was with her. Humber Pettit, and also William Eddy, a survivor of the Donner Party. These are all individuals that were on this steamboat. But I believe Eliza Gregson gives us a little bit of an insight into how was that journey, because this was a journey that when people signed up for it in San Francisco, they thought it was only going to take 2 days tops. She had written that the little steamboat had, that the boiler had leaked, and she thought she could have walked here from San Francisco faster. Now, on December 11th, 1847, Leidesdorff makes his travels back to San Francisco from here. And the newspapers of the time, the California Star, wrote about it. They said that a team of oxen walking along the river was moving faster than this steamboat did. No matter what, this steamboat pioneered early steam navigation on the Sacramento River. Now, what happened to the Little Sitka? Unfortunately, when it arrived in San Francisco, it didn't really move ever again. It actually partially sank. The boiler was removed from the steamboat, and the Steamboat was renamed the Rainbow and was just considered a schooner from there on out, with 2 sails. But what happens to Leidesdorff? I mean, he is a prominent businessman. He's got letters to all these different individuals. I actually have an example of one of his letters. This is between Pearson Barton Redding, who was one of the clerks at Sutter's Fort. This is his signature there. He actually did not go by William that much. He always went by A. Leidesdorff in a lot of documents. He is this prominent businessman. He's got a land grant, one of the closest land grants to where gold was found in January 1848. What happens to him? Now, unfortunately, on May 18th, 1848, Leidesdorff passed away of something called brain fever, that we know today as some form of meningitis. He was sick for several weeks. The local newspapers in San Francisco, especially the California Star, wrote about Leidesdorff being sick in numerous articles. And when Leidesdorff passed away at the age of 37, the city of San Francisco mourned his death, and he is buried at Mission Dolores. But what happens to his land grant? Unfortunately, his family is all in St. Croix, West Indies. He has no heirs or anything like that, and his family had no knowledge of gold in California or anything like that. His land grant was put up for public auction and was purchased by Captain Joseph Folsom. And Joseph Folsom started to lay out a city in the area that was later renamed in 1855, the city of Folsom, in his honor when Folsom passed away. Leidesdorff, at least the name lives on. There is a Leidesdorff Street in Folsom. There's also a Leidesdorff Street in San Francisco, and there is a stretch along Highway 50 near where Sacramento State is, the William Alexander Leidesdorff Memorial Highway. So try to look for that when you're going heading west on 50. But he was one of the most prominent people in Sacramento history that I wish more people knew about. He's one of the people that I enjoy talking about. He is an individual of so many different backgrounds, and he's just a great person to really learn. There's a book now that's been published on Leidesdorff as well. You can find that on Amazon. But more often than not, this place is historic for that first steamboat coming to come to Sacramento area. And this right here is the little Sitka right there. Thank you for joining us here right outside the Sacramento History Museum today to talk about William Alexander Leidesdorff. Let us know if there's other individuals that you would be interested in learning more about. We hope to continue this Who Is It Wednesday series in the future. Have a great day, everybody.